Hello, I'm Fast Lawyer. Today we're doing something a little different. I'm going to try to do a guide on how to use Geo-11 3D driver for VR so you can make any game which has DX11 into 3D in VR like you've seen some of me doing. Now I'm going to use the Quarry as an example of how to turn a 2D game into 3D in VR. Let's get started with the guide. Well, the first step, and I think this is very important, is to go to helixmod.blogspot.com. Now, this is a resource that I use very often, and there's a plethora about 3D gaming on here. There's news on the latest 3D fixes. So here, the latest news is that Wipeout Phantom Edition, which is OpenGL, not DX11, has a 3D fix to it. There's Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. So again, there's a Geo-11 fix for that one. So if you want to play that in 3D and VR, you can do it with this fix. There's Half-Life 1 Ray Traced. There's already a VR mod for that, so you don't really need this 3D fix since it already works with a VR mod. Contraband Police, I think I've heard of this game, and this is a game that I want to buy, so I'm definitely going to keep a mental note of this because I would like to play this in 3D in VR. Devil May Cry 5, there's a 3D fix for it. Geo-11 as well. Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, again, there's a VR mod already for that. Anyways, that just gives you a gist of the latest in 3D news. I highly recommend you read that. There's also a specific game list. Let's go ahead and check that out. So you see here is the announcement about the Geo-11 3D driver. This one has, I believe it's the latest version. And one reason I was very reluctant to do a guide on Geo-11 is because I'm not an expert on it. So I can give a guide on how I got it to work on my system, on the MetaQuest 2 using Helix Vision. I can do a guide on how I do it and how it works for me, but you might have a different setup and I probably won't be able to help you. Now, if you do have a question, feel free to put a comment on my video asking for help, but keep in mind, I may not reply, but hopefully the community replies. That's what I'm hoping for, because unfortunately, I just don't have the time to answer questions, especially when I'm not an expert on the subject at all. But hopefully you find this guide helpful. So you see here, you can download this, and I strongly recommend you download this, but this is not what we're going to use today, actually. So you don't have to download it, but I do recommend you do that. And this talks a lot about, there's a lot of questions and answers on this right here, technical details. I highly recommend you read all this. This is how I figured out how to use Geo-11 3D driver. Look, it says how to install it. It says which files to edit. So the information is here. You just really have to read it. Now, I'm going to try to make this video as simple as possible, so we're not going to go reading through it, but there's a lot of information here that's very useful. And Dave is the creator of Geo-11 3D driver, and there's a link here to his Patreon. So if you find this Geo-11 3D driver useful, please consider supporting Dave. And finally, we have the game list, and look, there's a ton of games. Now, I don't want to make this a long video, so we're going to go right into it. So we're going to look for Unreal Engine. And so that's where the download is for the Quarry, because the Quarry is not on here. It's not listed on here. So spoiler alert, it's not listed on here. So we're going to use the Unreal Engine 4 Universal Fix. So we're going to click on that. And this is what we use. This is what we're going to download to get the Quarry to play in 3D and VR. So you just download this. And here's the click for the download. I'll put a link on this video so you can just go directly here for the download. And so once you download it, simple step, all you have to do is unzip it. So hopefully that's simple enough for you. I cannot help you with that step. Hopefully you have a program where you can unzip it because it is zipped. You just have to download the right program to unzip it, and then just unzip the files anywhere on your computer. Make sure you can easily find them. Bob is one of the most helpful people. You might have heard of him from Helix Vision, and he is one of the people who helped with this fix. And I believe it must have been, was it Losty who actually made this fix? I don't want to, DHR maybe. I know several people contributed to this Unreal Engine 3D fix, so I don't want to miss out on anybody, but Dark Star Sword also helped, and Bob as well, and it looks like DHR as well. So those are their people. Oh, also Master Otaku as well. So there's lots of people who contributed to this fix, so thank to all of those 3D enthusiasts who do this, basically free. I know some of them do accept donations, so support them if you can. And this is, like I said, you just download it. So right here, just click download. I'll put a link in the video. Download it, unzip it, put it in a place where you can see the files easily. So put it in a place you'll find it real easily. And then all you have to do is copy those files. And I will continue this tutorial coming up pretty soon. Okay, so you've downloaded the Unreal Engine 4 3D fix, and you've unzipped it, and you unzipped it into a place that you can easily find. You copy all the files. Now, technically, I don't think you have to copy all the files, but we're going to do this the easy way, and the easy way is to copy all the files. So just copy all the files. And here is where I have the Quarry installed on my computer. So just find where you have the Quarry installed. You can go through Steam and just check on the install files and it'll pop up for you. But this is where I have the Quarry installed, and you'll see here it has a 2K launcher, engine, SMG, O26 folder, and then the Quarry exe. Now, even though you see the executable here, that's not where the actual game file is, believe it or not. The Unreal Engine has a little quirk where it's not here. So you just have to know where it is. So it's not on an engine, it's not on 2K launcher, it's on SMG O26. It's going to vary by game, but you just click usually on the game name. Usually it's just the game name again, or whatever quirk they named it. In this case, they named it SMG O26. You click on binaries. Again, this is the same for all Unreal Engine games. They all are very similar. Then you click on Win64. And here you have a list of all the files. So this is me. I've already copied all the files and I put them all here. And it actually makes more files after you start the game for the first time. So when you start the game for the first time, after copying all the files here, so you just copy, paste. So paste all the files here. And I believe I use 7ZA to unzip, extract the files, and then copy and paste the files onto the executable. And this is what it'll say. It'll say the Quarry Win64 shipping.exe. So you just copy, paste all the files, and then what I do is, and I'm not sure you need to do it, but I do it just in case, is actually click on the Geo-11 command. So I double click on this. Now, you may also want to double click on the UE4 Universal Fix 2 config command. I don't think you need to do those steps, but I do double click on start Geo-11 command. So just double click on that. If there's any prompts, you choose what you're going to use, whether it's side by side or tab for top and bottom. And like I said, then you just start the game. It'll take a little bit longer for the game to start than usual, but then you'll see either the side by side or the top and bottom. I always do that. So after I copy and paste, I run the game and I just want to see if it worked. So is it side by side? Is it top and bottom? And then I just exit the game. So that's what I always do. I recommend you do that too. And then after you're done with that, you go to this file. So it's D3DXDM.ini. So you click on that file, and I'm using Notepad to edit the file, but you might have a different program to edit, but I think Notepad's the easiest, so just use Notepad. I don't think there's any reason to use anything else, but you can if you want. And right here, it's direct mode equals SBS. That's on by default, I believe. And if you're going to use Helix Vision or VR Screen Cap, you actually want to change that to Katanga _VR and then save. That's what I use, so that's what I'm going to save it as. But if you're using virtual desktop, you just leave it at SBS. So you definitely want to double click on this file, d3dxdm.ini. Make sure it says SBS if you're using virtual desktop. But if not, if you're going to use VR Screen Cap or Helix Vision, you're going to have direct mode equals Katanga _VR. And it's listed here, so you don't need to memorize it. It's right here. Okay. And that's all we're doing. We're putting that there versus SBS or tab. We're putting Katanga VR. And just VR output to Helix Vision, but it could also say VR output to VR Screen Cap. Same thing. All right. So what else do you want to do here? So I think here you also want to look at a couple of other things. You want to look at DM convergence and DM separation. So I have separation at 30, and I think by default it's higher than that. It might be default 40. I lower it to 30. You might actually want to lower it to 20. 30 might be too much for you. And then conversions, I have it set at 120. I don't know what it's at by default. 120 might be too high for some of you, so you might want to lower conversions, or you might want to bump it up as well. That's up to you, but these are variables that you can change in order to have the 3D experience that you want. So again, lower it or make it higher depending on what you like for 3D. So that'll be a personal preference here, but that's my personal preference. 120 conversions and 30 separation. That's what I like. There's also auto convergence and auto separation. You might need to do the Geo-11 command, or you might need to do the universal 2 config command to get that auto convergence and auto separation to work. Okay, so once you do that, you're basically ready to go. Now, if you used SBS, all you have to do now is start the game. The game should start on side-by-side 3D. Once it starts that way, then you can turn on virtual desktop and have it set, I believe, to half SBS to get the best experience. Unless you know what you're doing, you could also possibly set it to full SBS, but that would take more tinkering. And I don't want to make this complex. Like I said, I'm not an expert on Geo-11 3D. But like I said, I actually use Helix Vision, and that actually makes it a little bit more complicated. So if you use Helix Vision, the next step might seem a little complicated, but let's go ahead and let's get into it. I think the first thing that I should say is that you want to find the executable, and you want to go copy. So what does that do? Well, let me paste and show you. Basically, it shows you where the file is, right? And it has quotes on there. It's very important to actually have this. So, again, just copy, cut, whatever, because we're going to paste that later on, and we'll continue the video in a moment. Like I mentioned, using Helix Vision is a little bit more complicated, and this is the tricky part. And when I did this, basically there was no online video that I found. I basically just had to read a lot and figure this out on my own. But basically, you go to your Helix Vision. Hopefully you have it installed. And you go to Properties. And then you go to Install Files, right? And you're going to browse. Again, this is just looking at the game files. So again, we're going to look at the game files. And as you see, there's Helix Vision. And assemblies, drivers, fixes, Katanga. So you want to go to the Katanga folder. So again, you want to go to your Helix Vision folder, go to Tools, go to Katanga, and then find the katanga.exe. And all you have to do is make a shortcut. So you see here, here's a shortcut. And then you just paste that on your desktop is what I would recommend. That way you can easily fire up the game. And then you click on Properties. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, we're back. And just bring up Notepad. And I copied and pasted what I copied earlier, which was the directory, the target location for the executable. So this is the location of the Quarry executable. And you're going to need that because you're also going to have to put this in the target for the shortcut to Katanga. So remember, we made a target for Katanga and we copied that to our desktop, right? Okay. So you're going to have to put all this information under the target. So this is the complicated part. And this is really beyond my comprehension. I just know to follow the steps. I don't know, but I would otherwise have no idea why. I just know we follow these steps. So this is exactly what you want, the format that you want. So it's very important to follow this, copy and paste this exactly. So this is obviously C program files 86. This is Katanga. So you copy and paste the target location for Katanga. So obviously it's going to vary by where you have it. I have it under C by default. So if you have it in C, this is what it should look like under Windows 10. And then it's space hyphen game hyphen pass space, and then the target location for the Quarry executable space hyphen launch hyphen type space DX11 exe. So that's what you need to put. You need to be precise. You need to put it exactly like that. You just need to copy it, man. So just make sure you copy it exactly as that. Again, this is only if you're using Helix Vision. Don't need to do this for VR screen cap or for virtual desktop. This is only for Helix Vision. This is the complicated part of doing this with Helix Vision. Now, I recommend you do it if you have Helix Vision, because Helix Vision, to me, has been the best, most stable one. I've had issues using VR screen cap, and when I use virtual desktop, it just doesn't look as good. So, that's the information that I have. That's been my experience. It's possible that if you set up virtual desktop properly, SBS might look better, but that hasn't been my experience no matter what I've done with virtual desktop. And VR screen cap looks almost as good, but just doesn't look as good. And I've had some issues on VR screen cap. On the Quarry, I had an issue where when I would look around, there'd be like a little delay, and I did not have that issue at all with Helix Vision, so I don't know why that was. So I recommend Helix Vision if you have it. The problem is that it's no longer for sale, so if you don't have it already, well, good luck getting a copy, because it just doesn't exist anymore. So again, target location for katanga.exe, target location for the Quarry game executable on the Unreal Engine 4, then just the --game pass space, and then space --launch type space DX11 exe. So that's what you got to put, and we're not going to save it. And so once you do that, all you have to do is first you start Katanga Helix Vision. So you double click on that, it'll start in VR. Obviously Steam VR has to be working, so this does use Steam VR. So even if you're on the Meta Quest 2, you're going to be launching Steam VR. Then after Steam VR started, you'll see the screen. It'll be blank. It's just like a little theater screen in front of you. After that, you have to start the game. And if you put in the target location exactly correct, it'll start in VR. Top and bottom 3D, translated to VR for your VR viewing pleasure, 3D and VR. Now, if you don't put it right, it's not going to show up. So again, be very careful putting the correct information into the shortcut that you copied from Katanga. So those are the steps. Now, for VR screen cap, it's much easier. Okay, so with VR screen cap, all you have to do is download VR screen cap. You start VR screen cap, and then you just start the game, which should already be in 3D 3D tab from the Katanga VR that we put under the D3DX DM INI file that we talked about earlier. So those are the steps involved in getting this to work in 3D in VR. If you run into issues, feel free to post a question on this video. But I have to be honest, it's very unlikely that I'll answer unless it's just a very simple question that I could quickly answer. But I'm not an expert on the Geo-11 3D driver. I'm not an expert on 3D. All I can tell you that for me, it was a simple 3D fix. But it did involve a lot of reading on my part. Because when I did this, there was no video, no guide. I think there might be one or two out there now. But I know when I started this, there were no guides at all online. I hope you found my guide useful. In fact, if I start the Quarry right now, keep in mind, I have not started Helix Vision. So the first step I would do to get this to work in VR is I would start Helix Vision. I'm not going to do that because I actually want to show what it looks like. So this has something a little different. It actually has a launcher, a 2K launcher. We're going to ignore that. So we're just going to start the game, okay? But I want you guys to see this. So this is the information that I get. And hopefully you see that there is some information there. What you want to do is you want to click on F2 and it'll get rid of all that HUD information. So you just got to click on F2 and you click on Shift F3, Shift F4 to mess with the conversions and separation. Anyways, I'm Fast Lawyer. As you can see, this is top and bottom 3D. Obviously, it doesn't work for me because I'm not using Helix Vision. I'm not in VR. But this is how it should look. Anyways, I hope you found this tutorial, this how-to guide useful. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And like I said, if you have any questions, post them on this video. Hopefully, the community has the answers for you. If it's a simple question, I'll be able to answer it. But if not, I may not be able to answer. Anyways, have a wonderful day. Goodbye.